us tonight. Brian, you want to lead us in our invocation?
Our Heavenly Father, thank you for your goodness and mercy and your many blessings. Pray that you just bless this meeting tonight. Guide them in the decisions that they are making for the city. Be with us the rest of the night, I pray. Amen.
Amen. Misty, you want to lead us in the pledge?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, we will go ahead and convene our public hearing to discuss the bond issue for the Homestead Sewer Project. Do we have anyone from the audience that has questions, comments concerning the bond issue for Homestead? Yes, ma'am. Tell us who you are.
Bonnie Steele, live at 121 Maple in Westport. There's this old African proverb that says, if the dance is lively enough, even the lame will crawl to it. I feel like that's me tonight. I have a lot of questions about borrowing $1 million to build a pipeline to do the sewer for Homestead that's now been annexed by Greenland. I don't get it. I mean, what I've heard you say, I think in the beginning, it made sense that we could get some more water customers or more sewer customers to help pay for our original sewer pipeline to Fayetteville. But then when the estimate came back at $3 million, and I think I heard right that the state is paying $2 million, and we're paying $1 million if we borrow $1 million. And that it will take 20 years for them to pay back that $1 million. And I realize that Homestead will be paying back the $1 million through their sewer fees, but to have to wait 20 years to get any benefit for West Fork, I don't get why we would want to do that. To me, it doesn't seem like something that I want to go into debt for. So I'm asking, I'm willing to be talked into it. I don't get it.
Okay,
So I'm curious.
fair enough.
And also, here's one more question
Okay.
before I lose my 2 minutes. I understood the pipeline from the sewer line from West Fork goes to Fayetteville, right?
Mhm.
North-south. So are we hooking up east-west to hook up with Homestead?
Mm-hmm.
So why is it costing $3 million? So anyway, I just have a lot of questions about that.
Okay. So I will address some of those, and if the council has something else I'd like to add, we can. Couple of things. It is a $3 million project. The city of West Fork met with Homestead 2.5 years ago to talk about the possibilities of this. At that time, the residents of Homestead, there's 80 houses there, were interested in annexing into the city of West Fork if we could get this package together. The city of West Fork and our engineering firm that we contract that with has went around and gathered up that package, that funding package from federal and state sources. There is still, trying to remember the number, it's just shy of $1 million that we're gonna, 827, 24, something like that, is what we're gonna need to borrow to fully fund that project. In the meantime, the city of Greenland got a new mayor, and that mayor decided he wanted to annex. Well, that annexation was not just the residents of Homestead. That annexation was voted on by all the residents of Greenland and the residents of Homestead, okay? So I know a lot of people are saying, well, they didn't even want to be a part of our city, why are we trying to help them? And I don't think that's a valid point, because we don't know how the residents of Homestead voted. And I was contacted by several that weren't happy with this situation. But first and foremost, Homestead, the reason we were looking at it was that step system has been failing for many years that they currently have. The math on it, so if the city of West Fork's putting up $824,000 of bond, how long does it take it to pay off? Well, there's 80 houses there with an average bill of $100 a month. So that's $96,000 a year, right? So in 10 years, that's $960,000. So we've paid it off in 10 years.
So we don't have interest payments?
Well, there's interest, yes.
Okay.
I'm trying to keep the math simple to explain. It's a 20-year loan, but there will be profit prior to 20 years.
Okay.
Okay? It should have a lifespan of 30 to 40 years. So if the city essentially makes its money back in 10 and gets another 10 to 20 years, 30 years of revenues off of that, I think we've done ourselves a favor from a revenue standpoint in the city of West Fork. Aside from that, West Fork, once we put in that line, everybody in the city of West Fork that uses sewer has been upset because of the rates. And I'm one of them. My wife complains every month when she pays that bill. And the fact is that we only have 700 sewer customers in the city. Okay?
In the city of West Fork?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, can we get more?
Well, that's what I'm trying to do with Homestead. Because,
I mean, in West Fork, because I've heard that there's.
well, hang on, let me
Okay.
explain real quick. So we only have 700 sewer customers in West Fork. We have 1,400 plus water customers. So our sewer is really confined to the central part of West Fork. And the city has grown out from there, but sewer hasn't. So we currently have, let's call it a $4 million bond that we have for the initial construction, and we only have 700 customers paying for it. But that bond stays the same. Even if we have 1,000 people paying for it, our bond payment stays the same, right? Just like the loan at your house, if you had 10 people paying on it, the loan price would still be the same. And that's where we see the greatest effects, right? So the more people we can get on that bond, the better off we're going to be. By adding Homestead, we're adding more customers to it. We're adding more revenue into water and sewer, which will hopefully help us have some revenue, some profit revenue that we can use inside the city to continue to rehabilitate the current infrastructure or to add new infrastructure within the city.
So you see the loan being paid off in approximately 10 years?
I don't see the loan being paid off. I see us getting I see us gaining that amount of revenue within 10 years, yes. We're gonna pay the loan off in the 20-year term that we have on the loan. We're gonna make our payments just like we make our house payments.
Okay,
But we're gonna have additional revenue
Okay.
over and above that amount,
I
yes.
see what you're saying.
Yeah, so this is not a plan that is gonna change the water and sewer division's revenue overnight. It is a long-term strategy to help assist the water and sewer department of West Fork in the long term. Not in the next 5 years, but over the course of the next
Okay.
30 years, this is gonna be a great investment of $800,000.
Okay, I feel better about it, just having heard some of the numbers. a little better.
Heath, can you also touch on the fact that if we annex them, it wasn't as good of a deal for us
Sure,
as
So-
it is us not annexing them
Because we
and
can
agreeing on
charge
annexing them.
out-of-town rates.
well, not only that, but what do we get if we annex them? We get the property tax on those homes, correct? And how much is the property tax on those homes that comes to the city?
Well, we also get sales tax, right?
So we're getting sales tax from that subdivision right now.
Oh, we are? We get sales tax from that
We
subdivision?
certainly do.
How, even though they're annexed to Greenwood? We
So how is sales tax determined?
I thought you said it was wherever you reside, like if you order from Amazon or
Mhm.
whatever, you have to pay the sales tax
Yeah.
of the,
Yeah, and it's typically based on zip code.
Oh, so they're in our zip code. Oh, okay.
Now, I'm not saying that the city of Greenland can't fight to change that. A lot of cities are trying to fight and change those things. But we're currently getting that
Okay.
sales tax. So
Okay.
if we were to annex them, what would we get? We would get the property tax on those homes, which is approximately $178 per year per house.
Got it.
Okay, so that's less than $20,000 a year that we would get in property tax. We would also, if we annexed them, we would be responsible for going up there and doing street repairs, sidewalk repairs. We're about to go in there and completely, you ask why it costs $3 million to do that.
Yeah.
Because we're replacing every line to every house in that subdivision. So that system they currently have is designed, the effluent comes out of the house, goes into a grinder pump, into a septic tank, and then it gets pumped up to the main distribution center where gravity flows across a couple yards. So it's a pressurized system. We are turning that into a gravity flow system. Everything's going to gravity flow just like a regular sewer system does. So when we go in, we're cutting sidewalks, we're digging through people's yards, we're replacing lines all the way to the house.
And then we'll be in charge of the maintenance of all that.
Of those lines. But we won't be in charge of going back and fixing sidewalks that break after the fact or streets that have got inverted speed bumps in them. That's going to be the city of Greenland's
Right.
problem
Well, we've got-
because they annexed them, and they're getting, like I said, they're getting about
Maintenance.
$178 a house. I hope they save it well because they're going to need it.
But we'll be in charge of the maintenance of all the pipes and the pipe. the
Yes,
sewer.
but in theory, the thought is that's a brand new system. That system shouldn't have any I&I in it, so that's the biggest issue with the sewer system is it gets groundwater into the system. Well, this is a brand new system with, state-of-the-art technology, and I say technology, I mean it's plastic pipe, it's glued together, it's not the old cast iron pipe or clay top, right? It's a new system, so should have very little I&I.
For 30 years.
Yes.
Right. Okay, well, I'm satisfied, thank you.
Have I talked you into it?
I'm not the borrowing kind.
Yeah.
We try to pay as we go. We don't like to be in debt. I
Yeah.
mean, personally,
Mhm.
and I don't really like to see my city be in debt, but at least I feel a little bit better. So,
Good.
thank you for answering my question.
You're welcome. Anyone else? Yes, sir.
I'm Steve Green. Should I come to the podium?
If you talk loud, you don't have to.
This is a pretty large investment for a city the size of West Fork, I assume, as we're all talking about it. Is this the best thing we can do for West Fork with $1 million right now? It sounds a little bit like we're getting into the service business here, rather than tending to things that for West Fork, like we found an opportunity to go out and make money, which sometimes you do in business and sometimes you don't because you lose sight of what your business is about. And is this kind of going that direction? Is this a distraction from what we could use our borrowing power, our credit limit, our credit position in the best way for West Fork? It puzzles me that way a little bit.
It's a fair question. So I certainly don't feel like we are going into the sewer business. From my position, we are strengthening our water and sewer department through this. All of our departments are fully staffed currently. The city is still financially strong. Just a couple months ago, we made a decision to make an additional purchase for the Parks Department. We purchased 3.5 acres to add to our Parks Department. So no, I don't feel like we're robbing from anything. as far as borrowing power and using that borrowing power to build up the city, these funds are strictly for infrastructure projects. That's how we were able to amass this amount of funding. We couldn't do that to go add a swim park, or we couldn't do that to add a new fire truck or anything like that. Those funds aren't available for that. The funds are specifically available for water and sewer, because that is it's the unspoken issue that municipalities around the nation are facing.
My directionality here is a little lacking. I always think of Greenland as being north of West Fork, and we have a sewer line running to Fayetteville. Is this line, seems like this line would run north-south also, or how is it east-west? Is there a simple way to?
So yeah, the main line that runs from West Fork to Fayetteville runs north and south up the side of the river. Homestead sits just east of that line, approximately 1,000 feet east of the main line. And so that's where we're gonna tie into that main line with a trunk that runs east up to the Homestead subdivision.
Okay, so it runs east-west to join that main trunk line, so
Correct.
we're not building a parallel line
No.
there.
No, we're running 1,000 foot of sewer main to get to that subdivision, essentially.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
One of the other things that I feel like we're doing is we're not just thinking about West Fork and about the sewer issues in our county, our drinking water. We had major problems with our sewer system, and we have gone in and fixed it, and it's cost us dearly, but it had to be done. This doesn't necessarily have to be done, but if we want it to be done right, it does have to be done. And we're doing the right thing as far as our county, our drinking water, the whole water system, and we're doing the neighborly thing by helping them. I don't know that they could do it without us.
They couldn't. So a little history on that for everyone. That subdivision was put in, I don't remember the year, but they reached out to the county to get a permit to put a step system in. So that's a self-contained sewer system. Basically, it's a extremely large septic tank, okay? The county granted those permits to several subdivisions. There was one in over by Prairie Grove, in between Prairie Grove and Lincoln. It has failed, and Prairie Grove has built a line out to it to keep it from leaching. And that's the problem with those. They put them in, and for whatever reason, they start to fail. The leach lines, the leach field isn't large enough, whatever the case may be. And so what they're dealing with up there, and everybody drives past that occasionally anyway, but there's a creek that runs just on the north side of that subdivision. Well, I haven't seen any pictures of effluent leaching into that creek to the north, but I have seen pictures of effluent leaching out of that leach field into the streets of Homestead subdivision. And so if that effluent is leaching south into the street, we can probably bet that it's leaching north into a stream that directly goes into the headwaters of Beaver Lake. So yeah, from the environmental standpoint, it is an issue, without a doubt. Yeah. Does that answer your?
Yes, that
Okay,
would help.
cool.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Hi, Grace Morales, citizen of West Fork. I would just like to hear a little bit of thought process or forethought on, we're talking about this being a 30-year investment project, looking forward to the future. I would wager a lot of money that area between here and Homestead is going to look very different in 30 years. Is there any thought on, when the next subdivision pops up next door to Homestead, do we plan on hooking them up too as it starts growing, expanding closer to us, expanding east-west? If
Great
there's
thought.
been
Great
any
question.
thought on that.
So, yes, there is, excuse me. I don't usually talk this much, John.
I know.
So good question, Grace,
Great
and I think you're spot on. Yeah, there is a likelihood of growth between here and there, or, so our sewer service would actually extend to encompass the field on the north side of Highway 71 as you're going to Baptist Ford Bridge. Okay, so everything was designed by Nick Backer from our engineering firm. It will flow back to our pump station. Okay,
Gotcha.
so in the beginning, yes, we were thinking what's going to happen if this starts to develop out? Can the West Fork system accommodate it?
Yeah,
When Nick designed the system for Homestead, they designed it large enough so that if across the street there is a subdivision that goes in,
yeah.
this system will handle that. Now, the beauty of that is, if there is development that goes in, the city won't be taking out bonds to tie in a new development, right?
Okay.
A developer that wanted to tie in would be paying for that
Gotcha.
on the front end. This is kind of a one-off because
It's already there.
the homestead is already there. I went into a little bit about the county approved this, but the county also approved an improvement district. And the county funded the installation of this, but tied that cost to every homeowner that was in it through their property taxes. So if I sell my house and you buy it, you take on that debt that is associated with that home paying off that system. So, yeah, if there was new development, the city wouldn't be involved in anything other than the design of how that system was gonna flow back
Right.
to our existing.
But it's
pipes.
something when it comes back to us,
Yes,
It's
and the system is designed
doable.
with that in thought, that yes, there will be some growth in that area.
Cool, thanks.
Anyone else?
I'm glad to hear you say that we won't have to take out a bond every time there's a new subdivision. The developers will pay for it as on down the road.
Yes, and that's what you've been working on our zoning ordinance, Bonnie. It's making sure that that's in place.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anybody else on this before we close the public hearing? No? Okay. So we are going to adjourn our public hearing and convene our regular meeting. We'll start with a roll call. Well, before I do that, is there anyone on the council that would like to say anything about this before we go into our regular meeting?
I'd just like to say that we have spent a lot of time talking about this and thinking about it, and the ramifications of how we would pay for it and add to our sewer system, help us with more numbers to try to help us pay for our sewer system. We didn't just go in there and go, yeah, we'll help you out, and then just kind of fly by the seat of our pants. There's been a lot of thought into it. Nick's done a great deal of work. Mayor has, Isaac has. It's been a lot of work, a lot of thought put into it, and I for one think it's really a good thing. And that we're not just taking money out of our pockets and putting it out there.
Homestead is paying the bill.
It's all gonna work out good for us and them, and for the whole county.
Mhm.
And it's just becoming more and more important every day on what we do with our wastewater, every single day.
Anyone else?
Well, I think just one more time to just clarify that water bills are not gonna go up because of this. I think that's a fear of a lot of people, the comments on Facebook where our water bills are already so high, is it gonna make them go up? And it's not. So just to make sure that those fears are
Yeah, very good.
put to rest.
Okay. So we'll now move into our regular meeting. We'll start with a roll call. Misty Cobb,
Here.
Jeff Upton,
Here.
Jan Throgmorton,
Here.
Marty Lindaberry,
Here.
John Collins,
Here.
Dina McKnight,
Here.
Don Rollins,
Here.
Jimmy Conda. Our city attorney and our city clerk are both present. The first item on our agenda is the adoption of the agenda. Do we have any motions, comments, concerns about the agenda?
I make a motion we approve the agenda as it is.
I second it.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, no. The next item is the approval of our meeting minutes from April 9th. Do we need any adjustments to that, or do we have a motion?
I make a motion, we accept them as written.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, no. That motion carries. Next is our public forum, where we welcome any comments that you have for the council, comments or questions you have for the council. Before we get into the public comment, all of the council members were handed out a handout from Central EMS. We do have Chief Harrison with us tonight. So if anyone has questions about what we've been handed out or questions about anything with Central, now would be a great time. He's made time to come and answer any questions that we might have. So I was asking him before the meeting started how many trucks they had. He told me they had 21. You can see on there in year 2023, they ran 25,900 calls in that year. That's approximately 1,200 calls per truck.
Is that all?
That's it, yeah. We take naps in between times.
Good thing.
And just for everyone's general knowledge, so Central EMS serves Washington County as an ambulance service. Some cities like Springdale, Rogers, Bentonville, their fire department of that city handles the ambulance service. Well, in Washington County, we don't have that. Fayetteville doesn't have their own ambulance service. And that is a huge benefit for all of the small towns and everyone that lives in rural areas. So we have a central ambulance service that all of the cities serve on the board of directors for that service. All of the cities pay
Per capita.
per capita. So based on how many people we have in our city is how we decide how much we pay the ambulance service. And that's Fayetteville, in this case, pays far more than the city of West Fork. West Fork pays far more than the city of Winslow, okay? But we all have ownership in it, and we all have a spot at the table when it comes to governing Central EMS, but we're all served very well by that. In West Fork, we don't have to wait for an ambulance to come from Fayetteville most of the time. We have one here. And Central does a fantastic job of, if the West Fork ambulance goes to Winslow, they're moving another ambulance closer to West Fork. They're staging ambulances so that our response times are so much quicker. And Central puts out a bulletin for all the cities each year that demonstrate how often they run those calls on their goals. So they have a goal of how long does it take us to get to a call in West Fork? How long does it take us to get to a call in Strickler? And so they make that available to all the cities to see how well they're doing at that. And Steve, it's not in here, but my favorite one that they track everything. And they track how, from the time a call comes into 911, how long does it take for an ambulance to be en route? From then, how long does it take for them to get to the call? So they're constantly working to better provide services. They're holding themselves accountable, and that's something that all of us should be thankful for.
Steve, aren't they allowed 2 minutes?
Yes, on an emergency call, they have to be out of the station, in the truck, and on the street in less than 2 minutes. We are at like 98.9% of our calls, they're on the street before 2 minutes.
Right.
And that's even if they get to lay down.
Yeah.
That is getting the pager going off, them hearing, they're processing, they're getting out, getting their stuff on and get to the truck and out on the street. So, it'd be like that. Any questions you guys have, but, we do monitor everything we do. We monitor, like I said, not only getting out on the street, but how long Mayor said it takes us to get there, how long we're on scene with different, whether it's a cardiac arrest or it's a stroke or it's a trauma patient, or they have time frames that we monitor to see that we're providing the highest level of service. They, I'm not used to wearing those things around my neck. I'm not used to wearing them on my face either, but we do monitor all of those to provide high performance ambulance service. And we are, as far as government ambulance service in the state of Arkansas, we're the second largest ambulance service. So we have a large ambulance service in Washington County. And just some of those things to tell you what our paramedics and EMTs do for our county. Our dispatch center, first and foremost, is accredited. So when you call 911, every one of them are trained to a level to recognize a life-threatening emergency. And then our ambulance service itself is accredited through the Association of Ambulance Accreditation. So we've met a lot of different criteria for the Washington County, for the citizens of our county. Just a highlight is next Monday we'll be appearing in front of the state of Arkansas to receive our paramedics and EMTs. Central EMS, your ambulance service will receive from the Department of Health an award for the highest stroke survival rate in the state of Arkansas. So, and across the country. There's in that form you've got, there's a website to go to on the third page, if you will, that will show you that Washington and Benton County have the highest stroke survival rate in the nation. So, I mean, that's pretty impressive. We work really hard for that. We have, from someone that is in full cardiac arrest, no breathing, no heartbeat, they are clinically dead. 44% of those people that we respond on, we get spontaneous respirations and heartbeat back. In 2023, there was 44, I think it was 44.2% that we brought them back from being dead. And the national standard is 12 to 14%. So we're quite higher than the national standard. For those patients that we do save, 24.5% of them got discharged from the hospital to home. They walked out of the hospital. National standard for that is 8 to 10%. So, I mean, we work really hard to provide the ambulance service to this county, to the city, to all the cities that we provide service for, and continually go through the paramedics and EMTs. We hire the highest quality ones we can. We put them through school. We test them. They have to pass throughout the year different testing scenarios to keep our accreditation and put these kind of numbers on the board for. I mean, national recognition for that is big for. I mean, we're in Washington County. We're in West Fork, Arkansas. We're getting national registry. That's pretty big. I wanted y'all to know that.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Any other questions?
I think they do a fabulous job.
I know they do.
We've had a few people use our services, more than one, but that's what we want to do. That's our goal for Central EMS. My goal for our service in our county is to provide the best service we can to whatever citizen calls us. So, if you have any questions about that, all of y'all know how to find me. Pretty easy to find. So, some people call 911. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Steve.
Thank you for the time, Mayor.
Thank you. All right. Would anyone else like to address the council tonight in the public forum? Yes, ma'am. Tell us who you are.
My name is Jennifer Sims, and I live in downtown West Fork. I have 3.9 acres and a quarter mile of riverfront frontage. And I recently learned, very recently, that the Bluffside ordinance impacts my property. And then I saw a revised thing that says that although it was originally for the city limits, that now it includes the whole planning area in West Fork. And so probably I'm the largest bluff owner in the city limits of West Fork. And while I understand the intent, and I love and appreciate and respect all of the people who put their time into this Bluff Overlay District, I think that it would negatively impact my property and would not allow me to do a variety of things on my agriculture zoned property currently. And so I don't know how many other, now that I understand that it's all of the, anyone who has Bluff property on the river, how many other Bluff owners there maybe are not aware of this ordinance impacting them. And then I would say that it may not be really very fair to single out only people who own property on the bluff. And my property, there are lots of people today who said, oh, I didn't know you're on a bluff. And I am absolutely 100% on a bluff. The entire side of my property is bluff line in some regard. It does slope, but it is on a bluff. And so when we talk about pollution in the river, every single one of us at our houses and what we do eventually is going to flow into the river. And so I don't think it's appropriate to single out only bluff owners in this ordinance.
Okay.
And I would appreciate someone to tell me why I should support it.
So we'll get more into that as we get into the ordinances concerning this, and we'll get council discussion on the entire piece of the zoning code. But thank you for that, Jennifer. Jennifer and I talked earlier today. I told her that, among other things, I was sad that somebody would make the remark that we weren't aware that you were on the bluff, as if it made a difference who was on the bluff as to what kind of rules we put in place. That's concerning to me. But all right, anyone else? Yes, ma'am.
Double whammy tonight. Hi, Grace Morales again. Just real quick, I wanted to, again this year, ask if it could be on the marquee, the hours of allowable fireworks the week of the 4th of July. Last year, I think I asked too late, and there was already a plan for what was going on the marquee. So
Okay.
in the ordinance, it is only allowed to be noise-making fireworks on the 3rd and the 4th of July from 9 a.m. to midnight. Not, June 28th till July 17th, as it was last year.
Okay.
So, that's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. Anyone else? All right, we're going to close the public forum and move into our business reports. First up, Planning Commission, Walter Harnish.
Good evening. So we only had one meeting since our my last business report, and that was on the 18th. We held a public hearing for the Title 14, Title 11, and Title 15 changes, and we came to a recommendation to approve that, so we'll be getting into that here in a minute. We also then, in our regular meeting, following that public hearing, we had a lot split and adjustment out on South 40 Road, and we approved the final plat for Rolling Plains subdivision, the one going in off Smith Street. And and then our next meeting is the 16th, this coming Thursday, and we have the preliminary plat for the planned unit development cottages at River Bend. And so we're moving along. Any questions?
No? Okay, thank you, Walter.
Talk to you again.
Yeah, those builders up there at Smith Street, they assured me they'd be, they was gonna be starting in just a couple days. I don't know what's holding them up.
Yeah, 2 or 3 things.
So I did see there's some material up there, just waiting on maybe some dry weather. Next, court report, Tracy.
Oh, I don't guess I have a whole lot to say. I hired 3 part-time people, and they are all doing a really good job, catching me up. It's going really well. We're having a good time, but getting a lot of stuff done too. let's see, I went to a training in April, and usually I learn a lot when I go to the trainings, and this time I left with a lot more questions than answers. So we're gonna see if we can't get them to fix that before we go around, because most all of the clerks were that way. As far as disbursements go, I'm up about 5,000 from last month, and up about 4,000 from the same month last year. And it looks like we're down like 40 citations or something from this month, or same time from last month. There we go. So I don't think I have a whole lot to say. I am getting quotes on monitors and things. They're outrageous because ours keep going out. They cut in and out all day long. So
Any questions for Tracy?
Everything's still good on, with the Cork County?
yes.
Okay.
Yeah, there's a learning curve on our end. Just like, okay, do you start a new meeting or do you join the meeting? When we figure that, we're like, wait, they're not on yet. We must have done the wrong way. So anyway, but when we get it right, it works great.
Cool.
So
Any other questions for Tracy? No? Thank you, Tracy. Next, our library report. Marie?
Hello. So this month we had some numbers going up a little bit from last year, but also we've been keeping our checkout steady and high, and also our items requested and card issuance continues to be in like the teens. We have our summer reading program coming up. It's going to start on June 8th. Before that, I just wanted to highlight a couple of things that we are going to be doing. The tweens really seem to be enjoying doing crochet, and so we're having one more crochet class, which will extend to teens and tweens as well as adults. And then we're going to start having something called Fabulous Fibers, where teens and tweens can come and hang out and do different fiber activities, whether it's crocheting or felting or knitting or whatever they prefer to do. I also want to just include the use of the community room by different people outside of the library space, so not like a library sponsored program. So we did have 4 bookings this month, and then we had a 5th group do like a walk-in. And then I did want to highlight a couple more programs for summer. We are having a herpetologist come on June 15th in the morning. And then we're also having the Mazium come on June 13th, and they're going to be doing stuff for younger kids and also stuff for older kids.
Any questions for Marie? No? Does everybody on this panel know what a tween is? I don't. What is a tween?
All right, so as defined in the summer reading program guidelines, a tween is anyone age 9 to 12.
9 to 12. Okay, so it's preteen.
Not quite.
Yeah, pretty much preteen.
Okay.
Yep.
They almost know everything.
Okay.
So about middle school age.
Gotcha. I hear it thrown around, but I've never actually.
Yeah, those
Thank you,
tweeters
Marie.
are pretty
Yeah, of
sharp.
course.
At least they think so.
Yeah, they do.
Next, Police Department, Chief Halliburton.
Good evening. All right. For the month of April, we had 299 calls for service. That's down almost 100 calls from this time last year. We took 30 reports, issued 32 citations versus 93 traffic stops, also giving out 28 warnings. Served 33 warrants, had 6 felony arrests, 7 misdemeanor arrests. And that was it for the month of April.
Any questions for Chief Halliburton? No? So Sergeant Goggins is in the room tonight. I was hoping you'd be here. No, so I was had lunch with a client the other day, and they brought up Sergeant Goggins and how professional he is. I thought they were lying at first, but they just went on and on about what a great officer you are, and I agree with them 100%. So thank you, Justin.
Also, just let me mention that the passing of Chief Mike Nelson. His funeral is tomorrow. The viewing will start at 10 o'clock with the service starting at 11. And we'll be in the procession to his interment in West Fork Cemetery tomorrow. So just to let the public know.
Thank you. Thanks, Chief. Next, Public Works, Isaac.
I've been busy. I've been working on lead and copper. Christie has helped me out tremendously with that, trying to track down when houses are built for our lead and copper inventory for Act 605, which has to be done by October 16th. So she's been tracking down house built dates and everything. So we've not contracted because they're doing it for free, but we're working with a group that's helping us get that inventory together. So that is moving forward. A lot of those will come back as unknowns, and then we'll have to hand out a letter to everybody saying, we don't know if you have lead and copper in your house. This is until we actually get hammered out what is actually serving your house. So that's occupied a bunch of my time. We have finished White Street completely, not quite. We got the last manhole in. We took a stab at asphalting our cut ourselves. It's a little rough. We come in about $9,000 under budget, or what we thought. So we've got a milling machine coming at the end of the month to smooth that cut up to make that smoother. I missed the meeting with the state aid paving, but Mayor was there. We did get awarded for 2026, I believe. So we will have some more paving going on that time.
So I want to point something out. Isaac said he missed the meeting. He wasn't invited. Not that I didn't want him there, I just forgot that the meeting was coming up and forgot to tell him.
That's kind of the same thing, isn't it?
I didn't want anybody to think that Isaac just skipped the meeting.
I thought he was busy.
Just some public notice, they are working on the bridge on 71 Highway at Dye Creek.
Yes, they are.
They're resurfacing that. They are working on the interstate up here. It is getting paved from 62 Highway all the way to West Fork, and then another company's coming in to pave it from here to Crawford County. So it's getting some major repairs. So I did meet with a lady today that had 30% drawings on the bridge across the White River here. So I worked through some utility stuff with her, and she was kind of a newbie, so she didn't really know what they would fund to move out of right of way or what. So we're supposed to get back together again when they get more plans. So I had something else I was going to tell you guys. I think that might be it.
So they're just not gonna do anything to the bridge until?
It doesn't appear that way.
Getting pretty rough, isn't it?
It's very rough.
Now, I think the surveyors, when they were down here, called somebody because they come and pre-mix the one at the very end, but they don't do a whole lot to it, no.
Put that grinder on it.
Yeah.
I'd be scared.
We
I'd be
may
scared of
vibrate
that.
the whole thing. That may not be a
Make sure
good
you got a
idea.
sky hook.
The other thing is tomorrow we will officially take ownership of Owl Hall Road, and the meters out there, they are coming to pull their registers. The meters will stay in, but we'll put a new register on top, and we will start reading that from now on. So, and it's just ironic that a developer's already called me about building out there there's like 26 acres out there that they're looking at building on, so. And how they could get sewer over there to it.
Heck yeah.
Interesting. Anything else for Isaac?
Fire away.
Don?
Had a big leak this month.
So the water loss is high?
I don't know that.
One.
I don't know that. We read today, so I won't know that till probably tomorrow, but
Well,
we
it
did have a
rained.
pretty good leak.
It rained though.
We had a pretty good leak up by Al Hollow. They're on 71, so.
So a couple things to note while Isaac's here. We usually keep a pretty close eye on what our cost of Fayetteville to treat sewer are versus what our income from sewer is. So if you guys looked at that, and I'm sure you did, we're still looking pretty good this month. If we think back to where we would have been potentially last month with this kind of rain, or last year in a month of this kind of rain, we're seeing a marked improvement from some of the projects that Isaac has completed. And Isaac said that White Street was a huge one. So he was very satisfied about picking that project and getting it completed and getting that amount of water out of that system. So.
Well, and I mean, Nick's flow monitoring even showed that that was a huge contributor there, so yeah, getting that one knocked out was big. We dug that when it was dry and we had water running down our ditch, so
Yeah.
there's a lot of groundwater in there.
Anything else for Isaac? No? All right. Thank you, sir. And just for the record, Nick's with McClellan Engineering. When I mentioned your name a while ago, I went blank on engineering. I can only think of one other one. I won't mention it right now, later. We're well represented tonight. All right. Chad is sick today, so he's not here tonight. He did not have a meeting last month, so we don't have any minutes in there. Parks Department, they're in full swing with summer ball programs and still working to get the bathroom set at Carter Park.
Still waiting on a plumber.
Yeah, so
Get there, so.
the idea is it will be in before 4th of July. I believe Chad said he's full with food vendors, food trucks for the 4th. He would take one more, I think, maybe. But we do have a fully staffed food court with food trucks at the 4th of July this year. So
Is that on the 4th of July?
it is on the 3rd, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah. All right, next, Chief Myers, Fire Department.
As usual, not a lot. We were able to do a pretty sizable control burn for a citizen that kind of helped him, helped us. Instead of him paying the forestry to do it, he's gonna donate money to us to do it. So gave our new people some really good training and give us a little spare money. So glad to do that for them. For whatever reason, we've had a couple of horrific accidents lately that we usually don't have very often. So tested our skills and abilities. So other than that, we're just doing school inspections, spraying kids, kindergarten, walk around, you name it. It's got something to do with the school, we're doing it. So career day today, I think, at middle school, so kind of long and short of it.
Any question for Chief Myers? No? Thank you, sir. Next, the finance report. Christie.
So our bank balances for the city show that they have decreased by $222,000. A big contributing factor to that is the land we purchased. We are showing that we're $69,000 over budget for all the departments, but that $200,000 is a huge part of that, so we're gonna expect a little bit of offage there for the rest of the year until that levels out. City sales tax, city and county sales tax have pretty much evened off for the first time in quite a few years, so we knew that that would come eventually. On the water department, their bank balances have decreased by about $14,000, but they are well under budget for the year. If you'll look, as Heath was saying with the sewer income versus the expenses, with Fayetteville and the bond payments, we are still $6,800 to the good this year. Last year, by the April report, we were already in the hole, so next month will be a rough one, just because there has been so much water. We also have an additional, loan payment that we pay in May, so won't look as good after next year, after next month. Other than that, I do want to remind everybody that we have a city cleanup scheduled. Our one and only city cleanup for this year is scheduled for June 7th and 8th. I think that's already been put on the water bills a couple of times, and we've tried to get it out on Facebook some. We'll start promoting that a little bit more now that it's getting closer to it. And keep reminding people that that's going to be the only one for this year. And the other thing that I wrote myself a note on is this is an election year, so 4 of you are up for election again this year. Dawn, Jimmy, Jeff, and Jan. So packets for you guys or anybody else that wants to run are at the office. You guys can pick them up anytime. You can't start turning them in until the end of July. And
finish what you started this year.
So.
Didn't even start? He started last year, or
Yeah.
the last time.
Yeah, just.
Forgot to turn it in?
Was just a little late turning it in.
Oops.
This year you're not.
I read the wrong date.
I knew you were late turning it in.
I read the wrong date.
Any questions for Christie? No?
What?
Questions for Christie?
Will you remind me?
I will.
Yeah.
Thank you, Christie. When did you say your graduation was?
June 13th.
June 13th, Christie will be graduating from, I never can remember the name of that program.
Certified Public Management.
Certified Public Management.
Where will that be?
Little Rock.
So, I think Isaac is gonna grab a bus and we all wanna drive down.
I was buying a beer.
Okay. So item B on our agenda is a procedural motion for all ordinances on the agenda. And I just wonder, Dina, do you have a procedural motion that you would like to make for items 1, 2, and 3 under item D, new business?
Yes. Yes, I do. I move that we suspend the rules for all of these.
All three.
All three.
Items 1, 2, and 3. Okay, so we have a motion to suspend the rules and read by title only for new business, item 1, 2, and 3.
I'll second.
We have a motion and a second. We do a roll call on that?
Yes, please.
Misty Cottle,
Yes.
Jeff Upton,
Yes.
Jan Throgmorton,
Yes.
Marty Lindaberry,
Yes.
John Collins,
Yes.
Dina McKnight,
Yes.
Don Rollins,
Yes.
and that is, that motion is passed. Okay. Item C, old business. We were wanting to talk to Isaac about yard waste, brush removal at the city cleanup.
I had to dig back through my notes and get my quote on a chipper that I got last fall,
Year.
maybe, yeah. $190 a day for the chipper, and that's us manning it, so if we get a huge pile of brush, I mean, we're gonna be a week chipping it up, and then you gotta get rid of the debris. Not everybody wants to put that stuff in their garden, they don't know what it is. I did reach out to Jonathan Wood, who does a lot of landscaping here. He has a gravel truck that he would come and pick it up on site and haul off. He said it's really hard to quote something like that, but he said it'd probably be about $350, $400 a load. He has a pretty good sized truck that he can put that on, so it'll haul quite a bit. Christy and I had a discussion at the office that, you know, if we do try to do something like this, maybe we can put some stipulations on it. We don't take nothing over 2 inch, you know, so people aren't having a tree service say, oh, just take that tree out and leave it on the ground, I'll haul it off. I got a place to go with it. So we're not getting full trees showing up down there. That it's truly yard brush and stuff that they've pruned out of their bushes and trees. So Well, I'll leave that up to you guys. I think we discussed burning it as well. If it really depends on how much we get. So I've had several people call me and ask if they could bring logs and limbs and stuff, and we don't have a designated area to put it, but I think we could fence off an area for limbs. We want to stay away from leaves, of course. He said that's one thing Jonathan told me. He's like, you don't want people bringing leaves because then you'll end up with 700 bags of leaves that you can't get rid of. So,
What's the council's thoughts on this? Do we want to pursue it? Do we want to kill the idea? Is there a particular idea we want to pursue?
I don't think it's profitable in any way, and unless we do set some guidelines. If we're gonna do it, we have to set some guidelines, otherwise it'll be a mess.
I don't think it'll be profitable at all.
I
I
don't
think it's
either.
gonna be
I don't think it's gonna even profit.
expensive
And a mess.
Well, I think, and you almost would have to have somebody down there, whether we had Jonathan haul it off or you
Well,
lay in it,
Unloading
right?
it and loading it.
Like,
His
sorry,
suggestion
take that
was-
tree back.
just a designated place to pile it, and then he would come after the cleanup and haul it off. So
Yeah, but
If someone ain't manning it, you're not gonna be able to see what they're putting in.
yeah, I mean they could throw whatever. I mean they could
Yeah.
have a bunch of 2x4s in it and
And
whatever.
that'll tear it
So
up quick.
yeah.
Well, what if we put the people that need this in touch with Jonathan? And maybe they
He's
can
in the
get
phone
it.
book.
Well, nobody has a phone book anymore. It's all cell. But you know what I'm saying? Like if we had say 10 people that needed it, or 5, that maybe he would just come to their house and load it up and could give them a quote.
Yeah, I mean I think he could give them a price like that.
You know, I mean,
I break mine up and burn them in the fire pit. So
well, and that's what I'm sitting there thinking.
So
If
we
you're
need
not
to-
taking the big stuff, I would almost think that people could just get rid of the little stuff in a fire pit.
yeah. And I mean we certainly don't. I haven't turned anybody away if they have a limb on their
Right.
truck full of junk. We just throw it in the dumpster with the rest of the stuff. So.
I don't know how but everybody else does it, but I just pick up all the junk in my yard, the limbs and all that, and throw it in my neighbor's yard.
You burned it on top of your meter box, right?
No, that was leaves. I burned the leaves on the meter box and melt the meter. See, I was trying to
Was that
say,
before or after you called the fire department to get permission to burn on the meter box?
after I called the fire.
And you get explicit instructions when you call, because I called and was told, no, you can't burn limbs, you have to just leaves and normal waste.
Oh, really?
Really.
Well, I don't think we should mess with the brush. I really don't. I think it's gonna be more of a hassle and a bigger cleanup.
Me too.
So it sounds like the council is pretty well decided on this, that we're not, at least this year, we're not looking to add this as an additional service to our cleanup.
Do we get a lot of requests for that? And the reason I ask
Not
that
through the
is
city offices.
because, you know, we do have churches around here that do that type of thing. They have cleanups that they help people with.
To my knowledge, Don, the only request we've had were the ones that came to the city council asking for it.
Yeah, I don't think we ought to do it.
I don't think we should either. I think it's too much money to spend for a handful of citizens. I don't think everybody else would like that.
Do we have a consensus among the
I
council?
think so.
All right.
But I do want, if it's okay with Jonathan, that we give his number out.
He's J&A Lawn Care.
Oh, okay, sorry.
Yes.
Okay,
You take all the business you throw at you. Yes.
okay.
Thank you, Isaac.
You betcha.
I think we can move on from that. All right. We'll move into new business. We have ordinance 2024-524, ordinance 2024-525, and ordinance 2024-526. These ordinances all deal with some portion of the West Fork zoning ordinance, building code, zoning code, subdivision code, that type of thing. So, we're looking to amend Title 11, Title 14, and Title 15. The council has been begged to come to planning meetings. The council has been given a copy of the proposed zoning code. And Juliet is here tonight with some presentation to kind of give us an idea of what changes we're making, why we're making them, that type of thing, and can answer questions. And we can have questions after she discusses this a little bit and see how we'll move forward.
Okay. Can you hear me okay?
Move that mic around here a little bit, yeah. Is it on?
Okay, I think so.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm just gonna kind of go through this real quick so to kind of give you a refresher on how we got here. This is a process. We did a plan. I think we passed, roughly a year ago. We adopted the plan, the West Fork Visioning Plan. There were multiple public input opportunities on that. We looked at kind of a consensus of what the current needs and future goals were for the city, and a land use vision for the city, and a guide to look at future rezonings. We did a mission statement with that, and I would say one of the predominant things that came out with the public input and throughout the process is that, you know, people really value the small town attributes and your unique characteristics that you have in the city of West Fork. They want to make sure that you're able to retain those as you grow, right? And so on top of that, we looked at, you know, want to make sure you get the type of development that you want, that you're able to keep our recreational areas and have appropriate infrastructure and a good quality of life for people who live here now, and people who are coming in the future. So we had goals that were established with that, right? And looking at ways to preserve the small town feel, especially its historic core, your landscape and the river, and making sure as the future fabric of the city develops that is kept kind of front and center. Look at a way to have growth that is a diversified economic base for your city, so that you're able to grow sustainably and not be hit, you know, by certain things and have stability. And then we talked about assuring that we had the development of codes that had a good, appropriate network for utilities, streets, drainage, trails, and parks in the future. And then we had some very specific objectives that we talked about with the plan as well. And one was to create a town center district. When the current zoning code that you have in place now just has one commercial district. I think this is one of the biggest things that we're trying to resolve with this new zoning code. So you have one district, right, and it covers basically all of Centennial, covers you know, Maine, and then also the downtown core and Harps, right? And if you think about that, those are all very different places from one another. You know, right here where we are downtown has a very, you know, kind of traditional downtown feel. Your buildings are pushed to the street. You know, you have the Opry building and this group of buildings. And then, you know, Centennial is more what I think of just typical highway development. And then Maine, you know, between Centennial and here, you have kind of a graduated type of smaller mixed use development. And all these things make West Fork what it is, right? But what you don't have is anything that basically preserves that character. So, you know, somebody could take a really big, you know, neighborhood market, and technically, you know, if somebody was willing to sell the land, they could plop it anywhere in there. You know, probably that would be appropriate on Centennial, but probably not appropriate, you know, on Main Street, and definitely not in your downtown. So the idea is to look at what you have, make sure that we have codes in place that allow for you to have a good future development, right, throughout all the parts of your city and respect what you have in place and make sure that the things that go there are of the appropriate scale and character. So one thing was to definitely make a town center district for this part of town. And then we also did a mixed use zoning district, again, for those areas along Main Street. And then a separate one for Highway 71. And that district is also what encompasses Harps and those couple outlots there, just because that has become a larger scale type of commercial. The other thing was that I know the Planning Commission had struggled with just the codes were very old and a little bit outdated and not super flexible and definitely not easy to understand and use, both for the city who is trying to, enforce them and for the people who are trying to develop or, grow their business here. So we wanted to make sure that we were able to make those easier to use and more clear and address, kind of modern issues that you have, not focused on the 1960s and 70s, because we're a long way from that now. And then we wanted to look at aesthetics and compatibility, like we had discussions about things that have come up recently, in the past, RVs, RV parks, RVs on residential lots, some commercial design standards, residential fencing, parking surface requirements, right, like when somebody has to pave a lot for a commercial business or not. And all of those things are now covered in the code and hopefully easy to understand. So essentially what we've done is try to make something again that fits your city. It's not a template. This went through about a year's worth of work with the Planning Commission, really talking about the specific areas of the city and what was needed. There's an example in the map over here. I'll say, so the predominant color that you see is yellow. That is your R district, or your residential district. And that's what a lot of, besides the areas that I kind of pulled out and highlighted, the kind of mixed use and core areas of the city, a lot of the residential areas where you have a lot of the housing are in that R district now, and that kind of parameters of that district do not change. So that's usually, honestly, that's what people worry about a lot, right, is that they live in an established subdivision and is somebody going to change all the rules there? And the answer is no. We're not making changes to that area. We're trying to make changes, to the areas that have more of a mix of uses to make sure that works well. Let's see if there's anything. We updated the sign code. It had some issues, I think. There was not a lot to the existing sign code, and then there were some legal pieces that I know the county attorney or the city attorney wanted to update, and so we worked on that. And then we did do some clarity for administrative and enforcement procedures, and tried to go ahead and streamline some procedures for variance, conditional use, and zoning applications. So this is the list of districts that you have now, and I will say all this is online if anybody wants to read it. We'll make sure, I think it's linked from y'all's website, right? From the city's website. And you can look at the map and zoom in and download every bit of it if you want to. But you have the different districts that are listed here. There's a scenic highway overlay district. This is an existing district, I think, from the 1980s. Yeah. And there were some odd things about it. I think like that required really big setbacks from, the numbered state highways, which include, highways that go right through the middle of town, they're requiring like 70-foot setbacks or some, that didn't make sense for what y'all had. And so we went through that, looked at it, kept the parts that we thought, made sense, and then updated other pieces to again reflect the character that you have. The blood protection overlay district, we had a comment about that earlier. We did put that into this. It was something that the Planning Commission discussed. I will say it does only apply, all of this only applies within the city limits. Zoning is not something that extends beyond city limits. This only applies in the city limits, everything we're talking about here tonight. And the Bluff Protection Overlay District, that was a way to look at something, you have, where you have the river, you have floodplain regulations that are regulated by FEMA that your city also enforces. And those cover the areas, basically the non-bluff parts, right? Anywhere where it floods. And they provide some protection to those areas through that existing scheme of regulations. And so this was a way to look at the pieces that were adjacent to the river, right? But they're not covered by the floodplain ordinance because it doesn't flood there because it's a bluff. But we can talk about more specifics if you want to talk about that more. But I just wanted to clarify that it does only apply within the city, and that was the reasoning for looking at the bluffs and not specifically all the land that abuts the river. So we have the mixed-use commercial districts, the 2 mixed-use neighborhood districts, that's what we're calling the ones like along Main, you have the MUN 1 and 2, and then kind of what I call the step-down district from downtown, which is a town center district. And that also includes the school area. And then the town center district itself is where we are downtown proper. Scenic Highway Overlay District and the Bluff Protection Overlay District. And then, like I said, there's a map over there, and if you have any specific questions, I'm happy to answer them. But the intent was to, take the plan that was adopted, try to find ways, to incorporate that so that you are able to play out that vision that lots of people worked on, and have something that makes sense for your town and where you're at.
Thank you, Juliet. So, we have this before us. It's a lot. Misty said she didn't get a chance to read it. I told her.
I said not all of it.
Not all of it. I told her it was a 45-minute read, 35 minutes to read through the old code. Should have had plenty of time to compare and contrast. But we'll let you have a pass, Misty. I do want to highlight that. So I was on the planning commission back in 2006, 7, somewhere in that neighborhood. We did a revision to the future land use map. We talked about a master street plan, and that's pretty much where we stopped. And I want to say that again. In 2006, 2007. So almost 20 years has passed since we really took a look at this document. And while we typically are on this body, we're talking about spending money, we're talking about projects that a department's going to do. This document has more to do with the day-to-day activities in our city than typically anything that we're involved with up here. Juliet said a year and a half. Juliet, I think I hired you 2 years ago, at least. Jennifer, we started this project close to 3 years ago with the Planning Commission. 4. So there's been a lot of time, a lot of thought. There's been a lot of mistakes that have went into it that we've went back, scratched our heads, tried to figure it out. And I want the council, I want Planning Commission already knows this, we've talked about it, but the residents that are here, this isn't perfect by any means. It's nowhere near a perfect document. But it is leaps and bounds ahead of what we currently have. And really what has brought us to this is so many years of neglect. Just like our sewer system. Guys, our sewer system didn't become defunct overnight. That was decades of neglect. The same thing has happened to our zoning ordinance. Juliet highlighted several things on this, but of things that are facing the city right now, page 6 notates what an RV is and whether or not one can be lived in. That's something that we need to, that's an issue we're having in the city of West Fork. the council needs to be aware of the overlay districts. This document goes into design standards. That's something that we've lacked for so long. But are we okay with it? It's a big jump from where we are. We're jumping into territory that larger cities are in. Okay, so I'm not saying that it's right, that it's perfect. I'm saying it's a lot better than where we were. We have standards now that we can enforce or require when new development comes in, and we're not looking to go out and dictate what they're doing on Smith Street. What we're looking to do is to not allow the fly-by-night developers to come into our city, build something, and run out the next day. That's not what we want. We want good projects like we're getting on Smith Street. This addresses storage units, something we've never addressed before, but it's something that's coming. Storage units, you build them, and that's like printing money. Short-term rentals, it's got specific language in there. Mobile food vendors. I don't know if you guys have noticed, but we've got some mobile food vendors that are taken up in Arkansas. We've got a zero lot line development paragraph in here. I don't understand it. I think it's probably good. I just don't understand it, right? That was one of those things I didn't follow along close enough on. We now have landscaping standards. Are we okay with that in West Fork?
But are you gonna have someone build a house, say, in a farm area somewhere, and then you have to landscape it? Are you gonna require that?
So these are, I believe, more requirements for the subdivision type developments, not a single family on an agricultural or real estate, or not real estate, what am I trying to? Residential estate.
It actually only applies to multifamily and commercial. It doesn't apply to actually single family.
But it is bringing to West Fork, hey, you have to plant so many trees, or you can buy credits by putting in some sort of an amenity. That's new for West Fork. That's big for us. Are we ready for it? I don't know. You guys make that call.
So my question.
That's a cheap way out.
Hang on. So we've got a section in here for signs. If you remember.
No pumpkin patch signs.
Well, now, I was just gonna say, city council kind of punted the signs. I think our city attorney gave you guys permission to punt signs. But I'm still arguing with planning commission over signs. I feel like signs are very important. I feel like franchised companies are branded by their sign. Right? So it's something we need to think about. And I'm not saying planning didn't, I'm just saying I didn't agree with them, so I'm bringing it up to you guys. What else is in here of importance that's changing? These overlay districts. Has the council read over those? Not just the new ones, but the old ones. They're important. There's a good reason for them. We need them. Are we comfortable with what's in here? All right, Dina, that's all I had.
So I guess-
Minimum square footage is changing. I'm sorry, Dina. That's a big one. We're going from 1,200 square foot minimum down to 1,000 square foot minimum. So there's a lot of changes in here. I just want you to be aware of it. It's a document that needs some thought. Go ahead, Dina.
Sorry. So my big picture kind of question about this whole document is other cities that are growing. You know, we look at the Prairie Groves, Farmingtons, other smaller towns around that have shown huge growth. Are these guidelines that are proposed in these documents similar to theirs in a way that we're not going to be restricting growth, but we're also going to put healthy, reasonable guidelines in place? Because I don't want it to be too strict that we keep some people from coming, but then of course we don't want the fly-by-night. So I guess I'm just asking, is it comparable to the other small towns around here?
Yes, I'll answer that. So, Prairie Grove, we've been working with them, like almost on the same timeline, that y'all have been on with doing both a comprehensive plan and a zoning code. And they actually just adopted their zoning code last week. And it's not exactly the same, of course, because they have, different things and different appetites for things politically, you know, but yes, and they're struggling with a lot of the same things, you know, like how much do we require on landscaping? You know, they don't wanna run people off, but they also, you know, don't wanna have things that look crappy and, you know, and like basically not be on the same level playing field with everybody else, right? You don't wanna be the one city that requires nothing. You know, it's not a good place to be. So, yes, and then we worked with Farmington about a year and a half ago on their commercial design standards. And I know they passed a whole landscaping code. I didn't work on that, but around that same time frame. So I think there's a lot of the smaller cities that are growing are trying to level up a little bit because they recognize that they were kind of getting the short end of the stick, you know? And yes, but we are very cognizant of that. I mean, we talked about it, like, you know, not requiring that people have to put in a full irrigation system. You still have the option, you know, you could do hose bibs as long as you can, you know, get within 100 feet. And again, this is for commercial and multifamily only. You know, we're not regulating the single family part.
See, I think that's a little much going out to make people put irrigation in or even in commercial.
But we're not. That's what I'm saying. We're giving an alternative. We're not saying you have to buy a whole irrigation system. We're saying you could do a hose bib as long as it has you know, you could put a
spigot.
Yeah, sorry, spigot.
So
You can do a yard spigot instead, as long as you have them spaced.
Frost-proof technically.
Yeah, to get, you know, because I do understand that. It does cost a lot of money to
Sure.
put an irrigation system. But on the other hand, you also don't want people to put in landscaping and then just it die. And you don't want it to have no landscaping. So we tried really hard to balance that. And I feel like we do with all the cities that we work at. But I do think it is more important, you know, in the smaller communities. You know, because also you have a lot more homegrown businesses. And you don't want to, you know, inhibit those either. So it's definitely a balance. I do think that especially for multifamily type development, I think having some standards, and I don't think these are crazy or over the top, makes a huge difference, you know, in the quality of the construction that you get, how it looks over time, and the impact that it has on your community. And even just little things, honestly, like how you handle parking when you get into triplexes and things like that, I think makes a huge difference on what the neighborhood starts to look like. And so those are some of the things that we tried to tackle. As the mayor said, it's not perfect, and there is a balance, and there may be things that y'all want to see that are a little bit different than the balance, you know, that we struck, you know, working with the planning commission, and that's 100% fine.
So Dina, just so happens you asked a great question. There's a couple guys out here that might have a separate thought on that.
Okay.
Anybody in the development world, have y'all seen any of this?
Most communities have something.
Is it running you away, running you to them? What's your thoughts?
It's just part of the price you pass on to the consumer.
Is there any cities that are getting a little too far out as far as too many requirements?
Bella Vista.
Okay. But as far as a requirement to do some landscaping in your subdivision, is that something that, if we didn't require it, would you put some in anyway? Just curious.
We usually put the yard in, you know, nice yard.
Does a requirement to plant trees run you off?
No. I mean, it's just another cost for
Okay.
us.
You guys are already approved, you can be honest.
Yeah, I know. I haven't got you to vote on it tonight. So.
Do we need to vote on that tonight? Is that still coming up?
I need to get it signed so I can.
Oh, okay. You can still be honest.
Yeah.
But I mean,
what I see is you get a very monolithic look when you require stuff, because the developers say, well, we get 3 bushes and 1 tree, and that's what you get. So everybody's got 3 bushes and 1 tree. And it's all the same 3 bushes and 1 tree. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's a little. Tree protection. Yeah, it's a little better to you know, I hate to see houses without landscaping too, but landscaping is very expensive. And it's hard to do, and it doesn't, the initial landscaping a lot of time doesn't live, because it's hard to put it in at that time when all that destruction is going on and construction. So it's a little easier if you've got people that want landscaping to put it in themselves, because they have a better feel for what they want, obviously. To require a tree or irrigation, in that irrigation hydrant you're talking about, that's a good thing. Or just hose bibs on the front of the house so they can water their stuff. You know, that's it's just part of it to us.
We also have in here, if you save some of the trees existing on the property, those go towards your credits as to not having to plant new bushes and trees. So we're trying to incentivize people not cutting down what's already there on the property.
Thank you. Well, and of course, it doesn't keep people from choosing their own landscaping and adding to later. It's just a minimum amount that the builders or developers have to include when they're.
Yeah, and I think a lot of it, Dina, is we don't want a housing desert, right, where there's nothing but houses and green lawns, right? It's nice to have some kind of canopy, some shade. So, yeah, I don't think Juliet's went crazy on this by any stretch of the imagination. And I think, if I remember correctly, reading this whole thing through is tough. But I believe we give some options of, hey, you can do, you know, some trees this side, or instead of trees, you can do some shrubs, right? So that there is a little bit of leeway for the developer to make some accommodations.
And I really meant not just landscaping, like in general, like the whole thing, all the different aspects of the zoning, and is it all comparable to what other towns are doing? So I know that's a really big question, but just.
I think so. I would say the one thing that, I feel like some towns don't do is, I feel like they don't require amenities on larger multifamily developments, and I think that's a problem, honestly. And so we did put that in there. I think it's 40 units and above. So I mean, this is not like you're building a little thing. You know, if you're building substantial multifamily, then there need to be amenities on that side for the people that live there. You know, and I think that's important. I would say some of that is a little more robust than I've seen in other cities. But again, I think it's important. Everything else, I mean, I think it's pretty comparable with what we usually see in cities, you know, of your size, or in the same range.
I would just hate to see anything more robust than other cities, because we need growth in our city, and so I wouldn't want to require more, and then people be like, West Fork, Greenland, let's develop Greenland instead, you know? So I just wanna make sure that it's comparable. And
I'll be honest, I don't know.
Hang on. We'll get to the public in a little bit. This isn't the planning commission.
I'll be honest, I don't know a lot about what Greenland requires for like multifamily and stuff. I'm not, but we could find out.
well, and I just threw that out there, like just basically any small town, so.
Yes.
And I think too, I'm not trying to change your mind by any means, but I think too, we have to think about the geography of West Fork, and what we're seeing are 20 to 30 house subdivisions, right? West Fork Acres is really our one anomaly in the city. Just because of our geography, we're not seeing these 80, 100, Greenland's looking at a potential 500 house subdivision. We don't have the geography to really support that size in one division. So if somebody was to come in and do a 40 plus, that's gonna be kind of a one-off. That's gonna be a really big subdivision.
And that's multifamily, that's not single family homes, that's multifamily.
Like apartments.
Apartments.
Can we get the sewer on that?
No kidding.
One thing we did do, we expanded to where you can, the districts that were solely commercial, like along Centennial, are now gonna allow a mix of development, mixed use developments where you can have multiple uses within, that district, not meant for single-family subdivisions, but for, you know, actual mixed-use developments or some different types of multifamily. And I think that could be good, in a lot of ways, you know, for the economy and as far as like where you would want to see some of that type of development in your city.
Any other thoughts or questions on the council?
You know, it's been going on for a long time, it's been needed for a long time, so.
Did you read the whole
thank
thing,
you to all
Lori?
of you that
I
worked
did
on
not,
it.
I did not read the whole thing.
I
I
tried.
don't think anybody did, but you were the only one. Do you need this prize here?
No other thoughts up here right now?
So is this bluff overlay, some of the stuff that restricts in it, is it, I mean, you almost, it sounds like in there that you, if you live in the bluff overlay, as she's pointing out, you can't even have a garden or anything as far as moving any dirt or,
No,
I mean, that's just kind of the way it reads.
that's not, I don't think that's true.
Certainly wasn't the intent.
No.
I know it's not the intent.
Right, yeah.
This could be turned into a weapon if, you know,
Oh, definitely.
We don't want.
and I don't want to end up there. I
No.
don't want to end up dictating everything to
No, I mean, it shouldn't.
someone's property.
It has to do with like, it shouldn't have an impact on people being able to put a garden in.
It impacts everything that someone can do on their bluff property.
What section we talking about?
Well, it's on page 25, is where it starts.
The bluff overlay?
14.06.17.
What page is that?
Page 25.
Yeah, 25.
So, you tell me what you need.
We'll let Tom look at it and just kind of give us his thought on the restrictions on it. Just while he's looking that up, anybody else have any thoughts on it?
And that goes back to what I said, I just don't want to dictate to somebody everything they can do on their individual property.
Yeah, is that in zoning or is that in the city?
Here you go, Tom.
Page 25.
Stop throwing some of these.
There you go, that's highlighted.
I didn't have it, start messing with land. Start throwing.
You don't throw stuff in the windows.
So while they're looking at it, the bluff overlay, a couple of highlights of it. It has an intent and purpose to regulate what goes in on the bluffs in the city of West Fork. So when we think about city limits of West Fork and the bluffs, we're talking Riverside Park, and then we're talking north of the bridge. On the opposite side of the river, there's a long bluff line that runs quite a ways down through there. The idea, here's some of the requirements so some of the people in the audience know what we're looking at. So there's a definition of what a bluff is. Where do we got here? So if there's something currently built on the bluff, that can be rebuilt on the same footprint, but the footprint can't grow. You can do minor alterations to things that are on the bluff, such as building a deck or a porch on a structure that sits on the bluff. But there's restrictions as to how far back off of the top of the bluff you have to stay. The Bluff Overlay District is a 50-foot barrier from the top of the bluff back, and so the district is saying you couldn't build within that 50-foot buffer, okay? But if you have an existing structure there, you can build, but you can't go within 30 foot of the current bluff, okay? So it's the idea is to pull things off the bluff. Accessory structures, you can still put them up there, but they do have to remain 30 feet off the top of the bluff. You can still maintain fences. The city can put in trails, developers can put in trails, there's still those 30-foot buffers. Some things you can't do, and I think this is what Jeff's alluding to. grading, filling, clearing, or similar construction activities. But it does note that minor land alterations may be permitted with permission by an enforcement official. But you can't put parking lots, septic tanks, in-ground pools, animal kennels, parking lots. You can't build a building larger than 150 square foot within that 50-foot buffer area on the bluff. There's, item 10 is housing and maintenance of livestock. You can't do it, but if that activity is currently in use, then you can continue to do it. It talks about, you know, if somebody's developing on it, there's erosion control metrics in here to trying to limit the runoff that's obviously going into the river if we're talking about being on the bluff. So those are some of the things that, there's some stuff about removal of vegetation. You can't remove trees, you know, we don't want people taking trees off. That's part of what's in there.
And you can graze animals, it's just like, you couldn't.
Housing.
Yes, right, just like, make that be their paddock. or
Yes.
barn.
So if you're zoned agriculture, then you really can't use those agricultural things for which maybe you purchased that property for. Of course, I'm like the only one in the room that it impacts. So.
Hang on, Jennifer, we're gonna stay with the council for just a little bit and discuss it up here. I'll get to the public.
So if she was already doing those things, she can continue to do
Correct.
those things.
Correct.
It's just if somebody else were to come in and buy it or decide all of a sudden I want
Or
to
something,
build
right,
this,
right.
then they couldn't do it.
So I think the way it reads, Dina, is if the activity is currently in use, it can continue in use. And I think that would be even if someone new purchased it. But if say there was a property where there wasn't currently cattle being housed,
Right.
the next person couldn't come and house cattle in that barrier.
And they could graze it there, they just
Yeah.
couldn't build a barn.
A barn, right.
But, I mean, 30 feet is what it says, not 50. But, so 30 feet from the bluff, you can do anything you want.
Right, yeah, it's just
You know.
from the top of the bluff
You
line.
can put a septic tank, if it perks, 30 feet from the bluff.
Yeah,
So you're not condemning the whole property.
No.
It's-
Just at the
Yeah.
bluff.
correct, and it's
Just-
from the, like, the top of that bluff line.
Yes.
And in several places, it's city property for the majority of that 30 feet.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a
Okay.
good, thank you for saying that, that's important information.
Yeah.
So now I do want to make sure that we understand that that's an important point. I don't discredit that, but that's an important point on only one bluff in this,
Okay,
on what we're talking about, right?
Okay.
So the city owns some land at Riverside,
okay.
but everything north of the bridge, the city doesn't own
And
any
there's
of
some
that
property
property.
south
Right.
too. There's south on the river too.
Okay.
But that's not in the, it's not in the city limits.
Oh, it's not, okay, it's not south.
But we do own that at Riverside.
Right, okay.
Uh,
Say that it's ends real quickly.
Yeah.
Let it end.
So what are your thoughts, city attorney?
I don't see where a garden could possibly be prohibited, even in the 30 feet. It wouldn't be what's defined as, grading that would require a permit.
Right.
It's not great, nobody's garden, at least, I think up on the bluff, within 30 feet of the edge, is gonna be a garden so big that it requires a grading permit. I don't know if anybody in the room has a garden that requires a grading permit. So there's nothing about, you can build your garden, that's not a problem. In fact, within that 30 feet, pretty much anything that you're doing now, you can do or you can redo, as long as you stay within the footprint. And even getting out of the footprint may require a permit, but could be permitted by the building official. It just seems really reasonable to be, this is what we've been talking about. Every time a development comes anywhere near that bluff, this place goes out of its mind. It goes out of its ever-living mind. And you guys haven't allowed a development up on that bluff. And so now you're finally getting what you asked for. And you're not even getting all of that. You're just getting kind of just that really, really sensitive part, that edge that you're really, really worried about. And you're getting a really reasonable, sort of, let's just keep what's going on there, but let's not put a bunch of septic tanks on it. Let's not strip it of all of its dirt. Let's not take all the trees and
everything off of it, you know, in other words, let's not scrape it clean, which is what y'all been talking about, right? I mean, you want to kind of preserve that very natural part of West Fork that's important to West Fork.
And we're not doing, what, 200 feet? Is that what the Corps of Engineers does at the lake?
Corps of Engineers does whatever it wants, of
Yes.
course.
So we're not going 200 feet.
There's
on
some 200 foot,
apartments,
there's
so
some
you can't
30
even trim a
foot,
tree.
there's some 300 foot.
You know, yeah, you can't even trim a tree there.
You can't do, you
I think
you can't put a stick in the ground. You can't, yeah. So I don't see that, Mayor. I don't see anything that would be in danger of over regulating for sure.
Is that reassuring? Am I allowed to address her?
Sure.
Is that
you would like-
reassuring to you at all?
It's not, I'm sorry.
No, I mean, I don't think I can reassure her. And I think y'all knew this when you walked into it. When you start to regulate the control of land, and the mayor has gotten a lot of conversation going, you are balancing interests. You're always doing that. You're always, and the person who owns that piece of dirt is always gonna be the one that says, I don't want any regulation on my dirt. I want y'all to regulate yours, but don't regulate mine, you know? But it's a community that y'all are here for. You're here for a community and you're doing what's reasonable. And when you work with someone like Juliet, it's always gonna be something that's within the, not just sort of, kind of what's really acceptable around the area and built for this area, but something that's also really reasonable. So it's reasonable, it's just that there's always gonna be someone that says, just don't do that to mine, you know? Like, I really appreciate the developer's comments, because his comments are really reasonable. I'll do whichever you wanna do, you know, but we add that to the cost of the property. And what it turns out is, what we really have learned is the most regulated property in an area, and I know what we all say, right? We're all gonna say Fayetteville, right? Is also, and now it's Bentonville, is also the most valuable property in an area. And what does really valuable property do? It increases property taxes. What do increased property taxes do? It makes schools richer. What do richer schools attract? More people. You know, so if you want to attract more people you get good schools, right? And how do you get good schools? You have good property value. How do you get good property value? You have good, beautiful places where people want to live. And this is a good start to doing that. End of rant.
Thank you. No, it was good, it was good.
It was.
So what it does, not what it does, but one thing it limits is, so if I bought that 6 acres on the bluff, I'd want to build a house on the bluff, right? But you can't do that. And I think, while I would like that, most of West Fork does not want to see a house up there on the bluff. And I'm okay with that. I'm just saying, we have a house on the bluff. Just north of the bridge. There's a house there on the west side of the river that extends on the bluff. Some people think that's cool. I'm just saying that, I'm not saying it's good or bad. I'm saying you can't do that type of thing anymore. And that may be for good reason. But that's what we need to decide in passing this is, are we okay with the restrictions? Because this is bringing restrictions in that we don't currently have. And there's a reason why we're discussing these restrictions, because we found instances where we've been taken advantage of, where it's cost the city dollars to respond to some of these things. Any other thoughts on the council on this? I'd like to get a little bit of public opinion on it. No?
Maybe after you hear the public.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, fair enough. Bonnie, you were first one to raise your hand.
Well, that was several paragraphs ago. I just wanted to point out, when Juliet was saying multifamily, she means apartments. So in other words, we have some requirements on apartment buildings that they have to have some amenities, like maybe a swimming pool, or maybe a clubhouse, or maybe a trail, or, to make it a little bit nicer than it just being a trashy.
So it turns into a ghetto place.
Yeah. But my feeling about the bluff overlay is that I love Riverside Park, and I feel like it's one of our crown jewels of West Fork. I think it's really beautiful. We have that beautiful bluff, and I don't wanna see a bunch of, I don't wanna look, when I'm walking at Riverside Park, I don't wanna look up and see a bunch of houses right on the edge. I wanna see trees and pretend like I'm out in nature. I think that that's part of the beauty of that. And I think one of the things that's beautiful about floating down Buffalo, for example, is that you don't see a bunch of development all along the edges. And I think that, you know, we deserve to have a beautiful river that doesn't have, where you don't see a bunch of people's backyards or whatever, you know. So anyway, I'm very much in favor of the bluff protection overlay zone, and I think it's very reasonable.
Okay. Jennifer?
There's so much in this plan that I spent years trying to fight for the citizens of West Fork, and there's so much in it that I wouldn't vote for, period. I don't like a lot of it, didn't like it then, and it shouldn't be a surprise to anyone in this room how I feel about it, because I've been very vocal about trying to preserve what's sweet about West Fork. And while I appreciate what Dina's saying, I don't really care about what anybody else is doing in their cities. What we need to do is what the citizens of this city want, and what is unique and special to this city, for sure. And then, like I say, it doesn't matter. We can talk about this plan for 5 more years and not pass it. We can pass it tonight. The next city council that comes in, the next mayor, the next planning commission, it changes, it evolves. None of it's set in stone. None of us, you know, are irreplaceable. And so it's not as if it's something that, I mean, I don't agree with a lot of it. But like I said, that's not news to me. I was blindsided by the bluff overlay, and I have fought for the protection of the river at Riverside Park. I fought against the RV park there for the light pollution and the other things that occurred in that way. And I feel very, just being very singled out to have that bluff protection overlay impact my property when no one else is getting their property rezoned. And we're, you know, while there are state and federal regulations that impact all of this, I still think that, oh, well, just because you have something for the floodplains, we need to be sure to, you know, do that on the bluff. And so I'm not for it. The council has to do what they have to do.
Okay. Any other thoughts in the audience? Yes, ma'am?
So while we were working on this, I just want to make a point that back when we did the survey, when that came out, one of the first questions that was on there is, what are some of the biggest issues that you care about in West Fork? And the responses to that were preserving the small town feel and charm and the nature of West Fork, and affordable housing were the 2 main, you know, issues that people cared about. And so I think the Planning Commission did a really good job of keeping that in the forefront of how do we address both of these things, because they kind of fight each other, you know, more housing, but also keep it small and beautiful. And so I think we really paid attention to that and tried to find a really good compromise with those 2 things, and I think we achieved that. I feel confident that that aspect is achieved in this current document.
Okay. Anyone else? All right. Council, any thoughts after hearing some public comment?
My question is, if we don't do some agreements, we're gonna be stuck with our antiquated, whatever year you said.
2006 and 7.
Yeah.
So I agree, something needs to be done. But I want to remind everybody the way government works, okay? So in this instance, we have a planning commission that's state mandated, and they are a commission. Their job is to go out and do the hard work, do the research, put something together, and bring recommendations to this body to pass ordinances, okay? So they've done their work.
And done it well, thank you.
They have, and I'm very appreciative that we haven't ripped this apart, right? A lot of times that's a tendency. We go through and we find that thing we hate and we rip it apart, and it kind of degrades the work they've done or the time they've spent. So we have this is good. It's not perfect. It's good. I don't agree with all of it.
I don't
but
think you can agree.
will you
with-
ever?
No, but I think just what Jennifer said, it's ever evolving.
Well, one thing Jennifer said, she fought for the park, okay? Riverside, up there on the bluff. She was telling someone else what to do with their property, but she don't want nobody telling her what to do with hers, is the way I see it. You know,
It's a drug. I mean, it's a hard planning and
it
development.
very
It's a hard thing.
is.
You know, but I'm not fighting against the subdivision going up there. You know, I think that housing is gonna go in that. It would have been beautiful if someone could have developed it to be a larger estate home. I think that would have been better, but that's just my opinion. And I can see very much where you have that feeling that you don't live where I live and it's not happening to you. And if it were, you might have a different opinion about it, and you might not. I'm not saying that I'm right, I'm just saying that I was blindsided by it. And, you know, it's not, like I said, there's a lot in this plan that I can't get behind at all, but I'm not the city council. None of us live in this town by ourselves.
What, I mean this as completely respectfully, but as we were reading over, as the mayor was reading over the prohibited uses and activities, what about that? I guess, what about the overlay? Will you please help me understand what is so offensive to you about
What
that?
about like paving my driveway? What about replacing my septic tanks because I am not on city sewer and don't have that option? What about just the different things? And I think that, you know, it's, like I said, it's hard for anyone to feel about it if they're not in that situation, if they don't have this special piece. And I don't put pesticides in the river. I try hard to, you know, police the river and pick up all the trash. We're so blessed to have the river, and I agree with Bonnie very much on that we have all of the animals and the birds and the species and all of that everywhere. I just think that if you single it out on the bluff and don't, you know, take responsibility everywhere in the city for it, then it's not, I'm just not behind it. It's, you know, some of it could have been blindsided because I'm trying very hard to stay in my lane. If it doesn't impact my property or my neighborhood, I don't want to speak for other people in their neighborhood and what they're doing. And just like he said, I mean, we have property rights and people should be allowed to buy the property that they want to and develop it within means. And so I understand the rub, but I
But
don't.
if she already has a septic tank there and needs to replace it, she can replace it, right?
As long as it perks, yes, you
I
can.
mean, septics are a little different.
Because that was one thing she just said.
Yeah.
And then if
Well-
you're paving your drive, that wouldn't be within 30 feet of the bluff, probably, would it? I'm
Well, my
really
property is
asking.
long and thin, and it's bordered on the larger portion of the river. And it's zoned agricultural, and so it just seems that, you know, I don't wanna put cattle on it. Obviously, it's not big enough for that, but I don't like the idea that property that I purchased, I can't use for the use that I purchased it for. I mean, I think everybody could get behind that, because like Juliet says, nobody wants their property rezoned.
Other thoughts? Directions on how to move forward with these 3 ordinances.
Sure, since you asked, what you would receive is you would entertain a motion, do pass on each one of them. It'd be a simple roll call vote, and I would read the title for each one of those first three.
I'll make that motion.
We'll do them one by one, of course.
One by one?
Yes, sir. This is to pass the building code part, would be
You
the
have other
first.
thoughts, Tina?
I mean, maybe it's just me, and I did read a large portion of this stuff, not, like, some of it was skimming at the end, I'm not gonna lie, okay, I was tired. But, it's a lot, so for me to even think about passing all this tonight is, I wouldn't feel comfortable with
I
that.
agree with that statement.
Okay.
I'm seconding that statement.
Then vote no.
That's right, we have a motion, we have a motion on the table.
It's just me, it's not just
So-
me. And I don't know if this is the forum at all, but like when I hear you talk, Jennifer, about it, what we read on paper and how it affects the citizens, like that gives life to this and it helps me to think about it more. Like it helps to analyze how this will play out for our citizens. And so it's not, I don't know that we could ever like, okay, tonight at the next city council meeting, we're talking about this. If you wanna come and give your 2 cents about it, we wanna hear it. And then I don't know if it's practical to pass it piece by piece.
No, we definitely don't wanna do.
No.
I mean,
that's-
not small piece by piece, but like chunks or something.
It is divided into chunks.
And that's what we're doing. So if you'll remember, we passed master street plan and future land use map. That was a chunk. This is a chunk. Once we get through with this, we're going to another chunk. And it's subdivision. So, yes.
Three chunks.
So we have a motion on the table to pass, to approve these ordinances.
One of them.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second to approve ordinance 2024-524.
So that is the Title 11, Building and Construction
Building
Codes.
and construction.
Not so much the zoning and the subdivision, but the different codes that we had to change.
And we're voting on them one at a time, correct?
Well, the next code change you'd vote on would be zoning, and the next one would be subdivision
Yeah.
code. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
So,
This is building and construction.
Yes.
yes.
And that would be a roll call vote, if there's no other discussion there.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second to pass 524. Misty Cobb.
No.
Jeff Upton.
Yes.
Jan Throgmorton.
Yes.
Marty Lindaberry.
Yes.
John Collins.
Yes.
Dina McKnight.
Yes.
Don Rollins.
Yes.
Okay. Ordinance 524 has passed.
And so, Mayor, the title is an ordinance to amend Title 11, Buildings and Construction of the West Fork Municipal Code, which sounds like a small title, such a, you're changing things. But what we've done is we've, of course, attached the code to the ordinance. Mayor, the next one you'd receive a motion on is, in fact, that zoning ordinance, which I think had some of the things you've been talking about tonight. And you would receive a motion to pass on that one.
I make a motion we pass 525, the zoning.
Well, so if I were to vote no, it's not that I disagree with it, it's just
Well, yeah, it
A
is.
lot.
If you vote no, that means you disagree.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And does that make sense? Like, we all just, several of
You
us
know-
said it's a lot.
Well, and just like that, if someone wants to do something different, they gotta take it to the planning commission to get rezoned.
So let's stay on track. We got a motion on the table.
Yes. Okay.
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second.
And just by way of process, what people think about that before you take roll call, after doing this about 30 years, what I've found is that we don't ever want to sell the planning commission short. And it's a hard job they have, and they'll never get enough credit like any volunteer.
Exactly.
But they've had a lot of meetings. And then in those meetings, these drafts have been gone over, I mean, literally, not always word by word, but section by section. Those maps have been looked at, probably plat by plat. Lines have been drawn very carefully, and all those are public, And then you invite people, you literally put it in the paper, please come.
You do.
It's on the website, please come and talk about these things, so we can go through detail by detail by detail, so that not a single part of this could possibly be a surprise. And that, what I've found is, I bet the same thing a lot of y'all have found is, still at that final meeting, when you've asked people to, for 6 months, you said, please come participate, someone go, I cannot believe you guys are pulling this on us. Where in the world does this come from? It's like out of left field. So one could say, no matter how many more meetings you have, there will always be someone that shows up and says, I cannot believe y'all are doing this. What kind of government are you? So I'm just, that's just been my experience. And not trying to, but y'all have done a lot of work.
So we've got a motion,
So that was my discussion, so thank you, Mayor.
a motion and a second. Attorney, what are we?
Sorry. You would take a, if there's no other discussion on the zoning ordinance, you would take a roll call now.
Misty Cottle,
No.
Jeff Upton,
Yes.
Jan Throgmorton,
Yes.
Marty Lindaberry,
Yes.
John Collins,
Yes.
Dina McKnight,
Yes.
Don Rollins.
Yes.
So 525 has passed.
And Mayor, that's an ordinance to amend the zoning regulations codified in Title 14 zoning of the West Fork Municipal Code in its entirety. And then lastly, for that third one, Mayor, is ordinance 526. You would take a motion to pass.
I'll make that motion.
Second.
We have a motion and second to pass ordinance 527, or I'm sorry, 526. Misty Cottle,
Yes.
Jeff Upton,
Yes.
Jan Throgmorton,
Yes.
Marty Lindaberry,
Yes.
John Collins,
Yes.
Dina McKnight,
Yes.
Don Rollins.
Yes.
And that ordinance is passed.
And that title, Mayor, is an ordinance to amend Title 15 subdivisions of the West Fork Municipal Code. Mayor, the reason I asked y'all to not apply that procedural motion to this last ordinance is because it's a bond ordinance, and we really try to adopt those and go through the procedures the bond attorneys wishes to. And so before this ordinance is moved for passage, Mayor, you would receive a motion specifically for this ordinance to suspend the rule again and place it on third and final reading.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to suspend the rules.
I'll second.
And that would be a roll call.
Misty Cottle,
No.
Jeff Upton,
Yes.
Jan Throgmorton,
Yes.
Marty Lindaberry,
Yes.
John Collins,
Yes.
Dina McKnight,
Yes.
Don Rollins.
Yes.
And so that has passed.
6 votes.
Do what?
It was 6 yeas. Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Sorry, I didn't count. And with that, Mayor, you would receive a motion to pass, but I'll go ahead and read the title on this one first, if I may, a little longer. This is an ordinance authorizing the acquisition and construction of extensions, betterments, and improvements to the sewer facilities of the city of West Fork, Arkansas, authorizing the issuance of water and sewer revenue bonds for the purpose of financing a portion of the cost of such extensions, betterments, and improvements, providing for the payment of principal and interest on the bonds, prescribing other matters relating thereto, and declaring an emergency. And Mayor, you'd receive a motion to pass for the ordinance, and then we would have a separate motion on the emergency clause.
Okay.
I'll make a motion to pass it.
A second.
We have a motion and second to pass the ordinance 527. Misty Cottle,
No.
Jeff Upton,
Yes.
Jan Throgmorton,
Yes.
Marty Lindaberry,
Yes.
John Collins,
Yes.
Dina McKnight,
Yes.
Don Rollins.
Yes.
And again, that's 6 yeas. So now we need a motion.
I'll make a motion to pass emergency clause.
A second.
We have a motion and a second to pass the emergency clause on this. Misty Cottle,
No.
Jeff Upton,
Yes.
Jan Throgmorton,
Yes.
Marty Lindaberry,
Yes.
John Collins,
Yes.
Dina McKnight,
Yes.
Don Rollins.
Yes.
Okay, again,
Thank you.
6 yeas. And ordinance 2024527, the Homestead Sewer Project bonds has passed. Next is item 5, resolution 202405, authorize the destruction of records. You guys have a list of records that we are looking to destroy out of the admin. Is courts in there yet?
Not yet.
Okay, and so what we're looking at is bringing in a shred truck. We know that courts have some records. Tracy's trying to find time so that we can do this together, but Christie had hers, so we want to go ahead and approve the destruction of these records.
I make a motion.
So why are we doing that? I mean, why are we like deleting the digital documents and everything? So we're never gonna have a copy of this, ever, ever, ever?
Do we need a copy of it?
I don't know.
So I'm assuming that we don't, since we're willing to destroy it.
Since it's like 10 years since,
I mean, I don't know.
for most.
So we're,
Just asking.
yeah, I mean, we're talking about deleting digital documents of bank statements from the tax, or from year 2019. Water bank statements, 2018 and 19. Franchise tax receipts for 19. Sales tax receipts, turnback receipts, annual financial statements.
And then like the paper, so the paper documents to shred or this personal files, are those are gonna be like shredded, they're not anywhere else? Is that right? Is that what I'm understanding?
Yeah, we're destroying these paper records, yeah.
So they're never to be found?
Misty volunteers to store them.
I mean, how come we can't like scan them and keep it on a computer or like a file or something?
Is that free?
No, definitely not.
I don't know, I see it all day long, so
It's not. I couldn't tell you what the cost is, but we're only allowed a certain amount of storage for what we pay for, so we do need to clean up documents as we're allowed to by the state. And these are dates that we passed the required amount of time that we hold them. It's all been audited. So we do want to clean up. There are documents that we are not allowed to ever get rid of. Your city council minutes, ordinances, there's some other things, but there are some things that we are not allowed to ever get rid of. But these documents are all ones that are allowed by state law for us to not keep copies of.
And most of these on here that we're talking about completely getting rid of, somebody else has a copy of. So our bank statements, you can call a bank and get that. They don't have the same eligibility to get rid of those. Somebody's W-2s, the IRS keeps that for life. There's really no reason for the city to keep those.
Not sure.
So, where were we with that?
I make a motion that
We had a motion.
approve it.
Misty had a
Don
question.
made it, yeah, Don made a motion, I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and second to pass resolution 2024-05.
And so what does the lawyer think? He thinks we should get rid of all this, is that right?
Is there any room in your garage right now?
I don't even have a garage.
Carpet, anything at all?
Mayor, should I vote since I got a personnel file in here?
No, we're just following the law.
Okay.
Mayor, we're just following the law. And
Yeah.
there's state law that's very strict and very clear about what you keep in for how long.
Yes.
Okay, just making sure.
Yeah, it's all above board,
Okay.
like everything else we try to do. All right, we have a motion and second. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, no. That motion carries. Item 6, reappoint Joe Tower and Dwayne Boyd to the Water and Wastewater Commission.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
Thank you. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Those opposed, no. That passes. Those are two fantastic appointees on that board. Not that the others aren't, but very qualified men on the Water and Sewer Commission. So, item E. Is there any other business?
I say we skip item F.
He's talked a lot
Second
tonight.
that. Second
He's
that.
talked all.
Item F is mayor's comments.
Skip it.
So no other business, mayor's comments. It's been a light month. We've got construction taking place on one of our subdivisions. I'm excited to see that. Yes, sir.
Are you gonna have to be authorized to sign that plat?
No.
You can just do it.
He could have signed it before the meeting.
Yeah, you could.
You could've signed it then, couldn't you?
All right, John,
Hey, I make a motion we adjourn.
Second.
Hey.
all those in favor say yes?
Yes.
That motion carries. We're adjourned.
Okay, and guys, this is not a participation. Don't bubble that. It's most important for West